All right, guys. So because I'm not going to be at practice for very many Fridays, I'll be there on meets that we have on Fridays, but I will not be there for practices. Um, I wanted to leave you guys with something to watch on the weekend or on Friday night that will allow you to bring something into Monday and think about Javelin on your weekend. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically do like a film breakdown of a throw from like an elite thrower. Um, so you can see the things kind of in action, see them being done successfully in order to throw really far. Um, so I'll be going through and kind of looking at different positions, and it'll help for practice when I bring up, like, for example, like back foot contact or drawback phase or crossovers. So you'll be able to see what I mean on an actual thrower, actually full speed competition throw. So um, we'll start. I'll just show you the throw as a whole. All right. So obviously, it's really far. Um, this is a about a 300-foot throw. Um, this guy's name is Andreas Thorkildsen. He's from Norway, and he's my favorite thrower. There's a few reasons why he's my favorite thrower. Um, First of all, he's just so relaxed. I mean, look how relaxed he is at the front of the runway. Very carefree kind of guy. And I think he uses that to his advantage in these competitions to stay calm throughout the whole competition, all six throws, even in the biggest stages in the world. He's very calm all the time. I really like that about him. I just think he's a really like good technical model of what a good javelin throw should look like. There's nothing crazy going on. Really, no wasted movements. He's very precise, very direct. Um, he's very fast down the runway. Um, so he's currently with this throw, which is 91.59 meters. This is 11th all time in the world. So on the all time list, world record down, he's at 11th place. Um, so you might wonder, if he's your favorite and he's 11th, what about the other 10 guys? Um, and another reason, my favorite thing about Andreas Torkelson is he's so consistent. And he's been consistent throughout his entire career. He's retired now, but he always shows up on the day. And he's a testament to, it's not about the giant monster world record throws that make a thrower successful. It's about showing up on the day and winning the dang meet. Knowing what you got to do, knowing the distances, going out there and competing on the day and winning the meet. Just some accolades for this guy. Um, he's a two-time Olympic champion, 2004, 2008, two-time European champion. He's got 4 world championship medals, 9 major championship medals. So that's European, World, Olympics. Um, 6 of them are gold, 3 of them are silver. So he's on the podium all the time. He's always a threat. You never feel comfortable if you're ahead of this guy in a competition because you know that he's relaxed. You know that he's going to come out and probably hit a really good throw. And he spent 7 straight seasons with his PR being for that season, his season's best being within 6.5 feet. So that's just crazy consistency. And you can see how that plays out over the long term. Consistency is definitely king over the long term, over a season. If your floor is at a certain point, it raises your ceiling. So we always want to be consistent and we want to do the drill work. We want to do the little things that make us successful so that we can show up on the day and compete and win a meet. All right. So with all that being said, we will get into the actual throw itself. So we'll start with the run up. And the run up is, I'll call it the run up. The whole thing is the run up. The whole thing is the approach, but this is just the forward running phase before he draws back. So you can see that he's very relaxed the whole time. Great running form, high knees, striding out well, no stutter steps, and he really builds speed from slow to fast. You can see that his other running arm, it's a good running motion. He's athletic. He's bounding on the balls of his feet the whole time. And look at this. This is something I want you guys to realize is that he hasn't taken a breath through his mouth this entire time. Like he is calm this whole time. He's not sprinting to the point where he's out of breath. He's not sprinting to the point where he has to breathe through his mouth. He's breathing through his nose the whole time, straight faced, no facial expressions. So chill. All right, there's not much to be said about that. One important thing that I want you guys to realize is that every phase of the throw builds into the next. So the speed that he chooses to go on this first portion of this running is only fast enough to give himself a good crossover phase. It's really just to prepare him to run sideways. And we always want to accelerate from start to finish. We want to be accelerating, or at least keeping our speed where it is. So he's running to just give himself enough speed to carry his speed through his crossovers or accelerate a little bit through his crossovers. So there's no need to come out of the gates like you're running a 40 yard dash, or you're running a 100-meter dash. Like there's no point. We want to build slow to fast. All right. So we'll see that his run up specific to him is, and I only count the left steps when I do it. And ideally we can do enough run up practice to where we don't need to count really at all. We just kind of know the form that we're going to have, and we know how much we're going to run. So how I would count his steps is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and now he's drawing back. So his approach is 6 running steps forward. And that's important because everybody's is different. Like he only needs 6 steps to get up to the speed that he feels comfortable. Some people will do 8, some people will do 7. It doesn't really matter. It's really kind of unique to you. So now we'll get into the drawback phase. And you can see here that he draws it back very slowly. He doesn't whip it back. We'll play it full speed for you. He doesn't whip it back. There's no rush. It just needs to get back there in time for you to hit your crossovers. And I talk about having that contact point on your face. So that contact point where the jab is when he draws it back is on his face, right by his eye. He knows it's there. He knows the jab is straight. It's nice and flat, like I could tell you at practice, being a waiter or a waitress holding the water glasses on your jab. That is perfectly level. I know it looks a little bit slanted, but in competition, things will break down a little bit. It doesn't need to be ideally flat, but when we practice, I want it flat. Because then when we do a competition, it gets closer and closer and closer to being flat all the time. So he finds that contact point on his face. It's right there. Arm is stretched back as far as he can. There might be a little bend in his elbow. I bet it'll straighten out. Yeah. So this is a good frame. You can see that it's straight as far back as possible. And you can see that running arm stabilize him throughout his run, right? Right. This arm right here, the non-jab arm, stabilizes him throughout his whole crossover phase. And one thing that's kind of unique about Andreas is he only does 2 crossovers. A lot of people do 3. So he said he had 6 of these steps, and then 1, 2. He's drawn back 1, 2, and that's his penultimate. So it's a really short phase that we're talking about here. And the reason that he has such a short crossover phase is because he builds a lot of his speed out of the forward part of the run. Some people can accelerate really well through their crossovers, some can't. Kind of, again, unique to you. There's a lot of ways to throw a javelin far, and everybody kind of looks different, as we'll see as I do more of these videos and go over other throwers. And if we watch it full speed, he builds it up, and there's no slowing down. He accelerates through those crossover phases. There's no slowing down at all. All right, so we'll talk about the very end, his penultimate step here. Gotta pause it. So he has that big, we talk about jumping off that left. He's on the ball of his foot. Big sweep of the leg. See how far his leg gets in front of him? That leg is way in front of this one here. And that's that kind of floating position that I talked about. When that arm comes up to stabilize across, that's what I was talking about in practice. When that arm comes up, number one, to stabilize this position, because if it was over here, if his arm was down here at his side, his upper body would be falling off and his lower body would be falling off. And that's just not a stable position. So it's kind of a corkscrew position with your lower half here. It's kind of forward, and your upper half is very closed off. You can see that if you were looking at him directly from the front, right now it's kind of a 45-degree angle. But if you were looking at it from the front, you would not be able to see anything on his front other than his hips a little bit. So that is the penultimate step. And you can see that he floats, float, 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 and that back foot contact. This is what I mean by back foot contact. Back foot to block foot contact. And the faster that we can get that, the less speed that we lose throughout that throw. So you can see how fast it's lightning fast back to front. Back foot contact. And at this point, when he hits his penultimate, and that sweep comes across, this is the last active part of the throw. At this point, there's no more power that you can create. There's no more power that you should create. Because the idea is that we're not throwing with our arm, we're throwing with our hip, right? And from here, when he lands, this is all a reaction to the speed that he's put into the beginning of his throw. So the inputs that you put into the throw are the speed on your run up, the energy flowing from the beginning of the throw to the end. He's not going to create any power with his arm or with his hip. His hip is a reaction to the power of the block. So you see his leg come down. Everything that happens from here on out is an elastic reactive effect from the block hit. That's like a big rubber band being pulled. And you can see that timing when I talk about how we drop and our head moves to the side a little bit and our body clears space for the javelin to come over the shoulder. You can see this position with his chest right there. That's like you're at the bottom of a bench press or a bottom of a push-up. His chest is maximally stretched right now. There's a bunch of tension in his chest. And that's what drives the throw with the javelin. It's not from the elbow. It's not from the hand. It's not from the bicep or tricep. It's from the chest. So a lot of problems that I've seen at practice that we have when we throw is we want to come down and we want to throw our arm to the side, right? We want to try to rip that thing to the side, and all that does is create a rotational aspect. And this is a linear throw. Everything is straight. So you can see that he doesn't rip the arm down. He drops the shoulder. And all that does is create a stretch in the chest. His arm isn't way out to the side. It's not like a discus throw. He's clearing space, stretching the arm, and the jav stays back. See how he stretches in, and the javelin is still pretty much where it was. You can also see that even in his penultimate, Javelin is still in that position right by his eye. He knows it's there. So, what is next? You can also see that he has really good posture throughout the whole thing. He's standing up tall. He's not leaning back. Another thing with crossovers here is that you can see that his legs lead. His legs are in front. It'd be easier to see if it was a directly from the side angle, but his legs are leading the throw. And that creates this line. And right now, his leg is here and his upper body is back there. So it's kind of a slanted angle that he's standing at. And that allows him to be behind his block. You can see that his legs are forward and he's behind his block. And that allows him to stick that leg straight. If your body's too far over your leg, your knee is going to bend and you're going to lose energy through your knee. It's hard to see here, but the release, you can see how his arm turns over and it pronates. It's kind of like throwing a spiral with a football. You're going to pronate your hand. What I mean by pronate is it's going to come through like this. It's not going to be a curved ball like this. It's going to come through pronating forward and turning in. And that creates spin and stability on the javelin. His torque is coming around, and this is an offset of the torque, so it stabilizes the jav going out. Another thing, release angle. You can see when he comes through, and it'll be easier to see when it flies. Let's see the jab flying here. This angle, it's very flattened out. It's not going straight up in the air. It's not like this. It's flattened out, and you can see when it glides and lands. So everyone wants to look way up at the sky and throw really high. We're not measuring height, we're measuring distance. So we want to throw it out and flat. Because the javelin has a tendency to self-correct. So if it goes up, it's going to come down and nosedive. You can see it glides down and it lands. That angle, 45 degrees, is up here. 90 degrees is up here. That's the ground. Right at that good, like probably 36 to 40 degree angle is ideal. And he hit that ideally through the point. All right, we'll watch it one more time through. Very smooth, very fast, very relaxed. It doesn't have to be such a put all your arm into it and grunt it out there type of event. It's really an art form, and it's really like how far can you throw easily? How far can you throw and still be relaxed? Because when we throw and have a lot of tension, we tend to want to pull down on the jab. And you can see how his arm never comes down. It only goes up. And it looks a little bit sidearm from this angle. But if you looked at it from the front, the jab would basically be pretty much directly over his shoulder. And that's why we clear the head, clear the body. You can see his legs are stable, but his torso comes up at an angle there. And that's not to say we want to lean down or lean to the ground. That's just to create enough space so that the arm can come over. Another really, really important thing is everything builds on the beginning of the throw. Your throw starts right here. If you don't do this correctly, you can't do this correctly. And if you don't do that correctly, you'll never be able to hit that position. It's about being relaxed and smooth and doing each phase well to prepare yourself for the next one. All right, guys, that's pretty much all I have for the first week, the first Jav breakdown. Um, let me know if you guys like this stuff. I can keep doing it. If you don't, I won't. Um, but yeah, I hope you find some value in this, and I hope it's makes more sense what I'm talking about at practice when we can see this happen in full speed in an elite thrower.